Welcome. We are so thankful that you have joined with us to watch this message. We pray it will be a blessing to you, that we'll all learn from it, grow, and become more like Jesus. Let's join in watching the message at this time.
I thought that Arizona would be mostly desert. Turns out it's not. There's a lot of beautiful landscape out in Arizona. Mountains, rock formations. This was taken on our bus trip from Phoenix out to Winslow. After we got to Phoenix, we had a 3-hour bus trip to Winslow. So we got plenty of pictures. This is the bus. We're on a charter bus. It was really nice, but I was still really, really tired because we had been up since very early that morning. And so we took the bus out to Winslow, and I was surprised to see that there are ponds and lakes in Arizona. I'll be honest, I did not expect to see one, particularly one as nice as this. This was I think it was actually a creek/river. It was very nice for swimming. We went there on Sunday afternoon after church. We went swimming there. We grilled out at the end for dinner, and so it was really nice. Got a picture of some of us just relaxing there in the water. It was a really fun time there. And then Monday morning we started our VBS, and every morning before we started, we circled up, we prayed about that day that God would move, and prayed for the kids, the teachers, everybody there. We had a group of 21 there, including the 4 of us from here. And you'll notice the moose and the lion. So Travis was our moose. He was here first service. He wasn't able to stick around for second service here. But he was our moose, and he did a great job. I don't think I could have been in that moose costume all week because it was hot. And so there's the moose and the lion. The lion was played by Jonas, who was a student from the other church. He soldiered through being the lion. I don't know how he saw. I don't know how he breathed in that mask. It was just hot. And so this is our first day singing there, doing our worship service there at the beginning. There are not a lot of kids here in the picture. That's because a lot of them would show up a little later. We actually had about 30 some odd kids there that first day, which was awesome. And we had these makeshift bongo drums that the kids loved to play, and so we'd have to figure out who gets to play the bongos each time that we sang songs, and they were always excited to play the bongos there. We also did puppets. We had a puppet show every morning for VBS, and that was a lot of fun. It was a workout. I played the guy in the blue there on the far left. That was me, and Travis was this green-skinned, yellow-haired character here on the right. And so this was Jean's class. She had the preschoolers. I think she is particularly gifted to be able to deal with preschoolers as much as she did. I'm not great. So much energy. Just so much energy. I can't keep up with them, but Jean did a great job that week. There's my group. I had the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, which were a little easier to keep track of. So there's our class there. And then this is Travis's class. He had 3rd graders. They're playing with Play-Doh, because what kid doesn't love Play-Doh? What person doesn't love Play-Doh, honestly? I mean, Play-Doh is just so much fun. And then there's another group of, I think, 2nd graders or kindergartners there. And the theme that week for VBS was our teaching was through Exodus, the plagues and the parting of the Red Sea and everything, and talking about how even in dark times or hard times, God is still good. And so it was a great week of VBS there. Got a picture of one of the groups there. Made sure to get pictures of all the families throughout the week, having a great time. So once we had our teaching session, we did worship, then teaching. And then we would go into stations where we had snacks, games, and worship. And so this is one group moving towards the snack station, and then we had another group with games. They were playing some kind of game with the parachute there, where I guess they had to get under it or get out from under it or something. But I was helping with the worship, but I could tell you they had a lot of fun with that parachute there. That is Naomi. She led the songs and teaching the kids the lyrics and the dance moves, and she was incredible. She's, I think, 17, and we had an issue with kids not wanting to dance, which didn't make sense to us, but she guilt-tripped the heck out of those kids and got them to dance. It was quite something to see. She might have been a little too aggressive, but I thought she did a great job. There is one of the Karens. There were 2 Karens on this trip. That's one of the Karens with some kids eating their snacks. Fruit snacks there, They would play a game. We had a circle of chairs. They'd play a game after they all had their snack, because we had plenty of time to do that. There's some kids trying to figure out the dance moves and the lyrics and learning to sing and trying to figure it all out. There's a line. So there's Travis helping with the games. They were doing relay races at this point, just running back and forth. And that really wore some of the adults out that were helping there. Travis was worn out because there's a lot of running. There's me learning the sound. I got to be the sound guy for that week and learning just what goes where, what buttons to push, and what buttons not to push. And so it was a learning experience, but I loved every second of it. I thought it was a lot of fun there. And then there's us practicing the puppets. It was such a workout. It wore your arms out so much, holding the puppets up for so long. But it was a fun time. We had fun with it. And then after VBS, we had some basketball hoops there. We'd play basketball a lot during the week. We had a great time there as we waited for lunch to be made. And then after lunch, we broke into 3 teams. One team was led by Dee, who's there on the right. They were building picnic tables, or a picnic table. And so they were out there working on that, getting it all put together. There's Travis helping them, measuring something. They're pondering their work, figuring out what's going where. And there's Dee appreciating it, just taking a look at what they've done so far. And then after lunch as well, I guess this is chronologically out of order, you had to do dishes. So this particular day, I guess it was a lot of the students' job to clean the dishes. So there's Travis and some other students. There's Jonas there in the back. Then one of the 4 Brians that was on the trip, he's there in the middle, and this is Jocelyn there on the left doing dishes. And then that evening, we went out. So this is a water filter. And fresh water is not readily available to a lot of families on the reservation. And so we had a bunch of these filters to hand out. And then this is Brian Snyder, who is the pastor at the church there. It's called The Well. He's trying to teach us how it works so we can explain it to people that we're handing them out to, so they know how to install it and work it and everything else. So we pack up the bus with plenty of other cases of water to hand out to people, and we take off. And this is pretty much what Arizona looks like once you get out in the country. There's some broken down houses and some buildings that are just not in good shape, and a lot of flat, a lot of desert out there. But we did come to this gated community where we handed out waters and filters. There's some of our people explaining how it works to some others there in the community. And then every night, me, some of the students, and some of the other leaders, we would go to this building. This is called The Shack. And it was right by our dorms. We'd go there, we played games, we played ping pong, I taught them how to play spoons, because I love spoons. And they were curious how to play, so that's us playing spoons. And then on Tuesday, so Nate is the man there in the middle with the really big beard. And then Karen is there on the left, and then that's obviously me there on the right. And every morning and every night we had devotions. And each group, or each person was assigned a morning or night, and sometimes it'd be a group of people. And so Nate was there for Tuesday morning, and his devotion, he called up me and Karen, and there's a little backstory to this, because he said he was trying to find a couple people that had some chemistry together. And he was really struggling to find until that morning when, before we went to breakfast, we were playing Ultimate Frisbee, just a quick game out in front of the dorms, where it's really like a lot of dirt and sand and rocks. And I slipped and just scraped the heck out of my knee. And Karen's a nurse. And she was more than happy to drench my leg in peroxide, which made me scream like a little girl. And so Nate's like, I'll have Karen and Marty do this because it's going to be great. And so Nate said he's going to say a word, and then our job was to do the first thing that popped into our minds connected to that word. And so he said the word birth, and this was my reaction. Getting into the birthing position, that was the first thing that popped into my mind. Everybody started laughing, but I'm like, I don't know what else to do. And so they got a great laugh out of that, especially Nate. He's keeled over there. So it was fun. And then we headed to the school for second day of VBS. There's Jonas picking up a kid to dunk the basketball there. They love the basketball hoop. We got new puppets on the second day, and with these you could control their arms. None of us are doing so in this picture, but we got new puppets there. And Dee is continuing work on the picnic table. They're finishing it up. He put so much work into the picnic table, and then a carpet ball table also we'll have pictures of later. he put a lot of work into it, and it was fantastic what he was able to do that week. This picture just makes me smile. Just this little girl having a great time, smiling for the camera there. And then here's more games on Tuesday that they're doing a relay race, if I recall, or playing with an eraser. They were doing something. I don't know. But the kids were having a lot of fun, and they were really loud too. There's Travis. He found this little girl, and it turns out he is good with kids. So they got a great picture together there. There's us having lunch after VBS the second day. That's kind of our setup. Just set up some tables there in the gym. Had lunch. And then we played some 9 square afterwards, and it's like 4 square, but like vertical, where you don't want the ball to hit the ground in your square. And so you work your way around as people get out. And it was a lot of fun. Just another thing to pass time. And Dee and there's Nate, they're starting work on the carpet ball table there, getting that started. And so then Tuesday afternoon, we had some people. So these are crafts. They're sculptures. There's a scorpion and a spider made of copper wire that one of the other Bryans, I forget his last name, he was a Navajo man, and he was really good at crafting things out of wire. And so he was there. So Brian is this man over here in the back, wearing the white hat. That's Brian, and he was teaching a group how to do that. And we also had this woman whose name I don't remember. She was a really great weaver. What? Alice. Thank you, Alice. She was a fantastic weaver, and so she had all this yarn and material that we could weave our own things. And so this was a finished product from, I think it was the Karen that destroyed my knee with peroxide. She was able to do one of each. She had the spider, and then she wove that little coaster thing there out of colored yarn. It was really, really cool. I included this just because it shows how athletic I can be on occasion. We were playing some football out there, and I jumped and caught the ball. And then Tuesday night was Gene, Dee, and Travis's time for devotions, and they did a great job. I got a couple pictures of them. They're sharing from the Bible, from this devotional book. It was a really good devotion. They did a great job. This was the view outside of our dorm. It was flat, but it also made for some really great pictures of the clouds and the sun. It was really nice there. And then this was Wednesday morning. This game / activity was called Little People. I had never heard of it, but Ron, who was the other youth pastor, they did this on occasion. And it's where, so you have Dominic, who I'm controlling. I'm there in the back. That's Dominic in front of me. And then Travis, and then Brian behind him. And then you got Jonas and Naomi behind Jonas. And so our arms were controlling what they were doing. So we couldn't really see what we were doing. And they gave us applesauce to feed them, and it was so much fun. Just, we got applesauce everywhere. Jonas ended up with applesauce in his eye. I got so much applesauce in Dominic's beard, and Travis was just struggling through it. It was a lot of fun, a lot of laughing with that one. There's Nate continuing work on the carpet ball table, getting that ready. And then this is my group. They're on Wednesday. Our group got bigger and bigger every single day, and it was fantastic. There's another group talking about the parting of the Red Sea. They're in Exodus, walking through the chairs. And there's Travis's family, group of 4 kids there, 4 adults. And then this was for the game. These 3, so this is Brian, Jonas, and Travis, and they're probably talking about strategy on what they're going to do next, because on the other side of the field, this is happening. That we found a slingshot, and we had a bunch of water balloons. And so they're slingshotting the water balloons at the kids, and you see Travis is just really scared. Brian, I think, is trying to catch it. I don't know how well it worked out for him, but eventually it just turned into just point blank, let's just throw water balloons at these 3. And they got so wet, and it was so funny. The kids had a great time. There is the group picture of all of us, all the kids and adults. They're on Wednesday, and we made a deal with them. We were we were in the 30s, maybe 40. I forget what our number was on Wednesday, but Thursday was our last day, and we made a deal with them. If you get to 50 kids, if we get 50 people here, we will pie a couple of the members of the staff, the adults. And so that was their goal for Thursday: get 50 kids, invite friends and whatever. And so there's us closing out worship there on Wednesday. Kids are dancing, jumping. We had all those hats to hand out. And then Wednesday afternoon, we hopped in the bus and we headed out, I think, to hand out more of the filters, water filters in that. And we came across this hotel, and we were told, if you've seen the movie Cars, there's a hotel in the movie Cars called the Cozy Cone Hotel. And it's just a bunch of traffic cones that cars stay in for their hotel rooms. And we were told that they were based off of these wigwam hotels here in Arizona, that's kind of where they got the idea. And I thought that was just a really cool little fun fact there. So we saw some of those. Gas is expensive in Arizona. It was $3.42 while we were there. So be thankful that we aren't in Arizona for the gas prices. And so we ended up coming to this parking lot at a strip mall, handing out water and filters. And I learned that when you show up somewhere with water and with water filters, you also had clothes to hand out, that people just flock to you. Now, mind you, it was raining while we were doing this, but it didn't stop a crowd of people. We had cars just all over this parking lot coming to get water, trying to make sure every car gets a person, and handing out everything. We got to share the gospel with some people, pray for some people. It was fantastic. There's us sorting through the clothes to hand out as well. And so then for lunch on Wednesday, we went to this church parking lot, and we grilled out. And this was Brian Snyder, or not Brian Snyder. This is Brian Schultz. Brian Schultz. He was the Navajo guy. He's been trying to start a Bible study in that area, and he's been having a really hard time with it because it's just not a very religiously minded community. They just don't seem to really care much, and I'll get into that a little bit later on, what he's dealing with. So we prayed for him and his family and his ministry, because he's been through a lot in his life and trying to start this. And then Wednesday night we went to this Native American dance show, basically. And every Thursday night during the summer, I think they do it like eight Thursdays, for 8 weeks during the summer, they come to this local park and they perform Native American dance full with the Native American traditional clothing and all this stuff. And this guy just really impressed me. He picked up, I think it was like 8 rings without using his hands. And that amazed me. And we got some other dancers out there. It was really cool. Some of the things that they did. We had this little kid who was like 6 or 7, just decked out in his Native American clothing, had wings. It was really cool seeing some of these dances. And then there's us back at the shack. Now, we would play this ping pong game called Around the World, where the goal is to hit the ball and then run to the other side, and we're all just running in a circle around the table, trying not to hit it out of bounds or whatever. And we decided to mix it up this one night, and we're like, hey, let's everybody use something that's not a ping pong paddle. Use something different. And so I, against perhaps proper judgment, used my new laptop, and I was very careful with it because I'm like, this is expensive. The church bought it for me, and I don't want to damage it. And it was fine. It was perfectly okay. Travis used a hoe, one of the gardening tools, and that didn't really work out for him very well. You got some people use lids, got a water jug there, a roll of paper towels. Somebody used a box, just a regular box. So it was fun. So now we're at Thursday, and there's a couple of people loving Jonas in the lion costume. The mascots were so popular. The kids loved the lion and the moose, as evidenced by here. You got some people hanging out with Travis as the moose. There's my group. On the last day, we had a big group of kids, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. I feel like this really translates as to how they were feeling during the week. Was sweaty, tired, like Travis is so over this whole thing. And I feel like Jonas is just struggling to smile in that picture. They soldiered through it. And we did reach 50 kids. So Travis got to pie Naomi there, and we got Ron, that was the other youth pastor, he got pied, and they just all got covered with pie. There's Jocelyn, she got pied. It was great. The kids thought it was fantastic, as well did pretty much everybody in that room. It was really funny. But we did reach 50 kids, which was such an encouragement. And so on the last day, we had our worship time, then our lesson time, and then we had a carnival for the kids. We had different games and activities. Outside, they had an obstacle course that the kids could run through. We had a ring toss there that Gene was doing. I got to head up the cornhole where kids could come and throw bean bags into the little slots there, and that was really popular. A lot of kids loved doing that. You could throw toilet paper into a makeshift toilet. I thought that was quite creative. I don't know who came up with that idea, but kids seemed to enjoy it. And then you could squirt water at, well, here, let's just go to the next one. You could squirt water at Travis. I don't know why Travis signed up for this, but he soldiered through it. And this next picture, he's just so done. He is so done with this. He's just, all his will to live is just gone in this picture. He was soaked. I felt so bad for him. And this is, I think, Dominic playing Gaga Ball, the other kids staying nice and dry, enjoying his time. And then after VBS, we played some 9 Square. Some of the kids were still waiting on their parents. We played some games with them as well. And then that afternoon, we went around Winslow. So the highlighted area on this map is where we were traveling. We split into 2 groups, and we tackled this area of Winslow where we were just going door to door, sharing the gospel with people, praying with people, talking to people, inviting them to church and things like that. And so this is me trying to wait on people to get out of the van, which was kind of hard. It was like 3 rows, and there were like 10 of us in there. We were pretty packed in there. And so we're just walking door to door, and I'll talk a little bit more about this here in a little bit. But it was a struggle. It was a real struggle and a bit discouraging as well, some of the things we encountered. And then Thursday night, we had a Hawaiian luau for teenagers, for junior high and high school students. And Ron found this makeshift hula skirt and decided to wear it. But as we all know, sharing's caring. And so he lent it to Jonas so that he could dance around in it as well. And so then we got some kids playing carpet ball there. They were able to finish it beforehand, which was great. And we got kids getting their leis to wear for the Hawaiian theme. Got some kids playing carpet ball there, having a great time. And then, so this young man, he was really short, and he really wanted to play 9 Square, but he was really struggling. And I'm like, do you want me to help you? I can put you on my shoulders. He's like, sure. And so it was probably a bad idea because he didn't trust me that much to hold him. And he kept putting it, you see his hands on my forehead. Those hands kept slipping down over my eyes, and I couldn't see, and I'm trying to walk and play, and it was rough. But we were able to make it to the middle, which is the goal in 9 Square, make it to the middle. But it was such a struggle. But he had a great time. It was a lot of fun. And then we did the limbo. And I'm not the most limber person in the world. So I was struggling with it, but I'm like, I'm going to get under this. And it was a lot of fun. And then for the last about 20 minutes, we had a devotional time with Ron, where he shared about building your foundation on the rock instead of the sand, that parable that Jesus tells. And so we had this sandbox, and we got 2 groups of kids, I think 4 or 5 kids in each group, and we printed out these little paper houses and taped them to rulers and put them in the sand. Like, okay, you're gonna try to build it on the sand. We had another group do it on the rock, and then to simulate the storm, we had, so there they are, and then to simulate the storm, we had those water shooters. I'm like, okay, kids, try to destroy the sand and the rock. And we learned this kind of backfired on us because we thought they'd go after the sand and rock. We were wrong. They went out after the houses themselves, and the houses did not survive very well because they were made of paper, and paper and water just don't mix. And then so then the people who put it on the sand, they went after the people that went on the rock, and they just went right after the house. They didn't even try to squirt the rocks. They just completely destroyed the house. And so I hope that the message got across. But then afterwards, Ron invited me to share about how my life was shaped by putting God first, and how I'd made some decisions in my life that weren't based on what I thought God wanted me to do, such as pursuing math education in college, but pursuing God and what my career was to be and where He was really calling me. So I had the privilege of sharing that. And then our devotion that night, this is Brian and Derek. And Derek is Brian's stepdad. And so they were in charge of the devotions. And they grabbed about 5 of us and put us in the kitchen, which is through that door there in the back, and basically told us, okay, just wait here. We'll come and get you when we need you. We had no idea what we were going to do. And what made it worse was that when they came in to get us, they would blindfold the person that they were getting next and lead them out. And we're like, what is happening? Well, what it was, they would blindfold us and come out, and have us come out, and then they'd, okay, Marty, we're going to do a trust fall. You just have to fall back, and we'll catch you. And under normal circumstances, I would have trusted those two. But when you're blindfolded and you're on a concrete floor, it's just harder to trust people. It really is. But they were able to catch me, and I didn't hit the floor, and it was good. And then on Friday, so Friday was kind of our like off day, where it was mainly just going on trips, basically being tourists on Friday. And the first place we went to is this place called Rock Art Ranch. And that's the owner. He's 84 years old, and it's basically a Native American museum where they've got so much like Native American art and crafts and history there. And so this is the pathway up into the building there on the right. And so it had pottery from eons ago, hundreds if not thousands of years old pottery found there in Arizona. They had some other crafts there, baskets and weaving stuff. They had some weapons and tools here. This big thing here, this triangle thing, that was used to start fires. You create friction by spinning it really fast, create a fire. They had spears there with the arrowheads, and they had a lot of arrowheads, a whole wall full of arrowheads here. And then we went out, we hopped on a bus and went out. This was an old Native American dwelling. They've since put siding up and roof and that, but don't get a very good picture of it here. But there's like parts where it's down, there's rooms in this underground that they just dug out. And then we went to this other area. This is our tour guide that she was showing us around. And this thing to the left is like a sauna, basically, where you would go in there and set a fire, or you would set a fire, put some rocks on the fire, and then just let it heat up. And then you would go in there where the fire's at in the rocks, and you just sit in there. And it would apparently really open up the pores and get you sweating quite a bit. There's actually a woman that lives there. I forget her name, but she's 114 years old. And she still does this during the winter months and fall months when it's not 110 degrees outside. She comes and does that every morning. And then we went out. We saw some old Native American dwellings and houses there, walking around this area. This was inside one of them. I got decorations there and pictures of, I'm assuming, past tourists there. And I think that's a saddle there. There's some of us just hanging out after we've seen everything, waiting on everybody else, just in the middle of the desert there. And then we came here, and this place was really cool. I don't remember what it was called, but it's basically just a big canyon, and we went down into it. You got the river, and it's a pretty lengthy one. We hiked down into it, and this is where there were a lot of Native American carvings and paintings on the walls. And so we took pictures of them. There was Snoopy painted on a rock at the top, which I just thought was kind of funny. Some people decided to swim in the creek down there, the river. I decided not to because I didn't want to go swimming because we didn't have a whole lot of time, and the water was kind of slimy. So I chose not to. And then afterwards, we went into Winslow, and if any of you are familiar with the Eagles song, Take It Easy, there's a line in the song that says, "Standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona." And so we went to Standing on the Corner. They've got a gift shop there. They've got a statue of some of the Eagles band members that I regrettably did not include pictures of, that you can take pictures of there. They got a gift shop there. I bought a cookbook because I love cookbooks. They have a really nice diner here. They had great ice cream. It was really good ice cream there at that diner. There's this massive guitar there that some of the teens decided to take picture with. And then we came here. So this is called the Little Painted Desert. This is Dee standing with our bus driver, Jose, not Juan. I called him Juan at the first service, but Dee and Jean were nice enough to correct me. Jose, and Jose was such a character. He was so funny. I remember one time he said that he'd heard that good marriage advice was if you argue with your spouse a lot, that means you've got a healthy marriage, or that you're gonna last a long time. He said, I think my wife and I are gonna last a long time because she yells at me every day. So that was Jose. He was great. So they're standing at the top, and there's kind of a better view of what we're looking out at. And it might not look that big from where you're sitting, but when you get out there, it's enormous. And it was called the Painted Desert because there's so many colors out there. There's Travis and Dee standing at the top. There's another picture out, just so much. And we ended up going hiking down there. There's some of the other colors, the reds and whites out there. And so there's me, Jonas, and Travis coming up. We're heading down there. One of the Nates threw a Frisbee down there. And I'm like, okay, we got to go get the Frisbee. So we headed down there. We got the Frisbee. And we just kind of hung out down there. So in this picture, I think I took this picture, because Travis and Jonas, they're over here on the right. If you can see their little bodies, they're way the devil away from me. And I'm like, well, they'll eventually make it back. But hiking down into it was a lot of fun. Hiking back up, not as fun. Not as fun. It was a lot of up, and I'm not a fan of going up. But there we are standing on, and it's one of those things where I don't think pictures do it justice. If you're ever out in Arizona, go here, because this is incredible. It's called the Little Painted Desert, and it is so beautiful out there. So we hung out there. And then this is Friday night, our last night there. This is Brian Snyder and his wife, whose name escapes me. She led worship there at the church. He's the pastor, and we're just praying over them for their ministry, their continued encouragement, because they're trying to start something new there, and I'll talk a little bit more about that after we get through the pictures. So they're sharing some more just encouragement for us, just the joy that they had in having us come out and how much they appreciated us being there. And so here's our last night. There's Dee, Travis, and Gene with one of the other Brians. There were 4 Brians. I don't remember if I said that. But this Brian, he works with Lifeline. He was our driver for most of the week. In the non-bus. We also had a van that he drove. And they're playing some euchre. They're enjoying a game of euchre there in the shack. And here's us playing Mafia, which is a card game. We had a lot of fun. It's a lot of like debating and arguing and trying to figure out who's who, and trying to get rid of the Mafia. So we played that quite a bit, and it was a lot of fun. And then this was really cool. In the shack, there on one wall was all bricks. And some of them were painted from groups that had been there in the past. There's actually a set of bricks painted by the Bethel Church of Christ up in Ada, that they'd been there. And so we painted a set of bricks here, and everybody got to write their name on there. So that, if you go back in the future, you'll see, hey, we were here July in 2021. And then there's our group. This is Friday morning. Got up, heading, about to hop on the bus, head to the airport and come on back. This picture is of the different generational families that were there. So you have Travis, and Dee and Gene are his grandparents. You have the middle 3. You got Brian, who is the stepson of Derek. They're on the right. And then Karen in the middle is Derek's mom. And then these 3 over here, that's Jocelyn, Karen, they're on the right next to Brian. And then Shirley, thank you. Shirley there in the middle. So Shirley is Karen's mom, I believe, and then Jocelyn was kind of like an adopted member of their family. And so we got a picture of them. And then there's us packing up, getting ready to head out. And we had one last circle of prayer, just praying over the Well, which was the church that we were at in that community, as they continue their ministry there. And so that concludes all the pictures that I have this morning. And I had to get it down. We went through 165. I forget if I said this, but I had to go through about 1,800 pictures, 1,700 of which came from Ron, who was a youth pastor at the other church. And I found out that Ron is a picture machine. He had this little digital camera, and he carried it everywhere he went. And he didn't do a whole lot of work, because he was carrying the camera around to take pictures. And so got through all those pictures. But some of the things that I learned, so when we got there on Saturday night, and as we prepared for VBS that week, we were told by Brian Snyder, the pastor of the church, that our main focus that week was to love kids. Because one of the hardest parts about a short-term mission trip like this one is that you're there for a week and then you leave. And you don't know if you're going to see those kids ever again. You don't know how much they're going to remember from your time there, lessons, crafts, games, whatever. But one thing I've learned is that kids and people in general will always remember how you make them feel. And so our main goal that week was to love those kids. And John 13, 34 and 35 tells us, Jesus tells us, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." And I hope those kids felt love that week. I think they did. And in the midst of all the craziness of COVID and everything else that's been going on, I think sometimes we forget that we're supposed to love people, especially people that are very different from us, that think differently or that live differently than we do. We get so caught up in our own feelings and our own thoughts of what's right and what's just, and we forget that love is a grand part of what we're supposed to do as Christians. And one of the biggest things I took away from our trip to Winslow is that culture in Winslow, Arizona is vastly different than the culture of Lima, Ohio. Those people live very different lives than you and I do. And it's not just because they live in a desert. A lot of people out there, they don't know Jesus. And it seems to be that they're okay with that. You saw the pictures of us going around trying to talk to people. That was one of the hardest afternoons. That was definitely the hardest afternoon of the trip out there. And the reason why is that we went from door to door. And it was during the day. A lot of people weren't home because they were at work or whatever else. We understood that. But some of the people that we did come in contact with, we would explain, hey, we're from this church. We want to invite you to church. Is there anything we can pray for you about, etc. And we got a lot of cold shoulders. We got a lot of people that just didn't seem to care. And I understand some people just aren't religious. But my thought is that wasn't the case with these people. Because we were also told, and this shocked me, we were told that there's this one strip of road, it's about a 1.5 mile stretch of road where there are 10 churches on that road. And the Baptist church that we had lunch at that one day where we were praying for Brian, that was one of those churches. And we were told that those churches just didn't seem to really care to reach certain people. They were kind of set in their ways, and they were okay with how they did things. And Brian Snyder, on Sunday after church, he sat us down and kind of shared with us a little bit about the culture and some of the struggles that they had been going through. And he said that they had one event, this was a while back. I don't remember what the event was. I don't think he even said it. But he got a call from one of the other churches asking about this event. And they asked, is this event for this set of people, or these people living in this area? He said, yeah, it's for them. It's like, good, because we don't want to deal with those people. And my immediate thought, and I think it was the same thought that a lot of people in that room had, and perhaps that you were having, is what? How can you call yourself a church and not yearn to grow and bring people to Jesus? And the reason that we were told is that there's a lot of hatred and racism between the white people and the Native Americans. White people don't like Native Americans, and Native Americans don't like the white people because of how they're treated. They're basically treated like children. Brian Snyder told me that if he sends Brian Schultz, who is the Navajo that worked at the church, if he sends him into town to get like an oil change done on one of the church vehicles or something, that the people at the garage that they go to treat Brian so terribly, like he doesn't know what he's talking about, like he's a child. And Brian Schultz is a grown adult. And that's the reality. That's what shocked me. I mean, what gets me is I was pondering through this is that, like, if you're a church and you don't want to reach a certain people for whatever reason, you're basically saying that Jesus died for nothing. You're basically saying that Jesus, maybe he died for me, but he didn't die for those people. That doesn't matter. That everything that Jesus went through doesn't matter because those people don't deserve salvation. And if we're not telling others about him and bringing people to him, it's kind of like that. And you know, the Great Commission, Matthew 28, it spells it out so clearly. Go, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey all the commands I've given you. And behold, I am with you, even to the end of the age. You know, Jesus explicitly told us this. And there are churches that just don't. And I remember in college, I took a class called Worldviews, where we learned about all the different religions, world religions and worldviews around the globe. Talked about Hinduism and Buddhism and Islam, Christianity, of course, and some of the other less known worldviews out there, different branches of atheism. And one time, we were in a discussion group. So every student at the university had to take these classes. So you had a bunch of kids in each semester of class. So what they would do, they would split you up into about 4 discussion groups, or four groups. And every so often you would have a class where you just meet with your group. And one day, we were talking about what a consistent Christian would be like. What would their life look like? What would they do? And the answer that we came up with, while I believe it is true, does not define or describe the vast majority of Christians in America today, myself included. Because my answer, and the answer of most of us that we came up with, would be that if you're a Christian and you know the gospel, then your life would be fully devoted to sharing the gospel with people. And I think a lot about that because that isn't me. Sure, I'm a youth pastor. It's really easy for me to just pawn off, well, I teach youth group, and I teach Sunday school, and I teach junior church every week. I'm making disciples. But it's so much more than that. You know, I don't really spend a great deal of time spreading the gospel and making disciples and teaching people. It's something I need to work on. You know, I think every time I read the book of Acts, I get so convicted because the early church is so different than the church I see in so many places. Where Paul and Peter, they were traveling around, going from place to place, discipling people, planting churches, doing all this stuff. And I don't, and a lot of people don't. And I learned perhaps so much more on the mission trip than at any other time that there are so many people in this country that need Jesus. You know, and it got me thinking, I wonder how many of your neighbors know Jesus? How many of your neighbors go to church? You know, I can confidently tell you that neither of my new neighboring families since I moved into this new house, none of them know Jesus. None of them go to church. So that's something I need to work on because I know the gospel and I know the power it has to transform lives because it transformed mine. You know, and it doesn't even have to be your neighbors, coworkers, family members, friends. You know, we have a great opportunity here to do some amazing work for God's kingdom, and I don't want to miss it. I don't want to die one day and end up at the gates of heaven, at the throne of God, and think to myself, I could have done so much more. Matthew West recently released a song called What If? And the lyrics of the chorus go like this. What if today's the only day I got? I don't want to waste it if it's my last shot. No regrets in the end. I want to know I got no what ifs. I'm running till the road runs out. I'm lighting it up right here, right now. No regrets in the end. I want to know I got no what ifs. You know, it's talking about living a life with no regrets where you don't look back at your life and think, I could have done so much more. And what if you made a decision today to live for something other than your own pleasure and your own agenda? How can you reshape your life around what matters most so at the end of your life you aren't stuck asking, what if? Because that's something I need to work on, and I'm willing to bet that I'm not the only one. But as important as that is, I don't want to end on a sour note, because I was also greatly encouraged during VBS that week. And we were told when we got there for VBS that we might only end up with maybe 15 kids. And they said, however many kids we get, we're going to work with that. We're going to do what we can to make it great for those 15. And we never had less than 30 kids at VBS that week. We reached 50 kids. I think our final count was 54 kids, 53 or 54 kids on Friday or Thursday, our last day. God does great things through those who are willing to listen and obey. It usually, unfortunately, takes us getting out of our comfort zone sometimes. But if you're like me and want to bring more people to Jesus, then start with your neighbor. Start with a coworker, a family member, a friend. Just start with one. Start praying for them. Start going out of your way to help them and explain to them what God is doing. Tell them about an answered prayer you had recently. Tell them about how God has been working in your life recently. Because I sincerely believe that isn't difficult. I think we get this misconception that to make disciples, we have to know all this Bible knowledge. And you don't. It just takes a willing and humble heart to step out in faith and trust that God will use you like He's used countless others to build His kingdom. I saw teenagers that week who didn't know anybody there in Arizona and who had their own shortcomings love the heck out of a group of kids. And I saw a group from Ohio in general who didn't know anybody in Arizona bring the love of Jesus to so many people. And I'm sure that you and I and everybody in this church can do the same thing here. It just takes a step of faith. It takes letting go of our own desires and saying, God, I'm trusting you to work here, because He's done so in so many other occasions. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, you are in the business of changing lives. But Father, sometimes we get in the way. We let our own agendas and our own pursuits and our own wants get in the way of what you want to do on this planet. And Father, we're sorry. But Father, we pray that you would use us, that we would step out of our own comfort zones and start doing what you have called us to do, and that's making disciples. Because there are so many people in this world that need you. And Father, you've called us to do just that. Give us strength, give us wisdom, and open our eyes to see what great things you can do with somebody that simply says, here I am, send me. Father, we thank you for how you work in our lives, for how you transform hearts and minds. And most of all, we thank you for Jesus. It's in His name we pray. Amen.
Thank you for watching the message. If we can help you in any way, we ask that you please contact us. Check us out on our website, rouscupchurch.org, and that's spelled ROUSCULP church.org. You can find information there on how to contact us. We'd love to hear from you or talk with you and help you in your walk with Jesus. Thank you once again for joining with us.